Well, rise and shine. It is a beautiful Monday morning here in Abuja, the nation's capital. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Good morning. What a weekend it was.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, it was a full weekend. Good morning. I'm Bukola Samuel Webimo. Welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning. It's a beautiful Monday morning. Now, Kade, we had this conversation around, women in politics and all of those things, and one is wondering, and this whole, idea of women in politics dates back many, many years, even pre-independence. So, is it any surprise, really, what's beginning to happen, now, with a little more attention being given to women in politics, especially to governorship level?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think it's a good one, a big win. Actually, Maokwe and Bukola should be taking this one on, actually, because I think it's a major win for women generally, what we saw in that governorship primary in Adamawa. Well, we didn't see what we wanted to see, or what a lot of people wanted to see in the PDP presidential primaries, especially regarding the female aspirant. But at least I think it's a major win for women. And I'm right, aren't I? About what? The governorship candidate that emerged in Adamawa State.
Well, it's not the first time that a governorship candidate will emerge, a woman will emerge as a governorship candidate in Adamawa State. I think some states just have women who are brave and who are able to wade in the waters of politics and still manage to make a name, stamp their footprint. Do not forget. Okay, well, I think I'm mixing two states now. Adamawa is one, Taraba is another. Or do not forget that they were once one state. So there used to be the old Gongola. Yes, there used to be the old Gongola states. Yes, and I think that explains my confusion in some ways. Mama Taraba nearly clinched it. In Taraba State, she was a front runner, and she did give the current governor a run for his money. In Adamawa, it does look like, she floored all the contestants in a fair and open contest. So it does look like there is a huge vote of confidence, and I think that's where it needs to get to. That women are not just there because, vote for me because I'm a woman and we're trying to raise more women. No, it's because they have gone through the process, they understand what the people want, and the people see them as popular candidates. It's the same thing I say for minority, someone who's from a minority ethnic group, emerging in a majority ethnic group setting. What it means is that the people in the majority see you as the one who can carry their aspirations through. So congratulations to the flag bearer of the APC in Adamawa State, who, Madam Binawa, Senator Binawa. She is currently a member of the Ninth Senate. So she's certainly proven her mettle as a politician in truth. I do not know how many more women. I know that across senatorial districts, though, we're seeing many more women emerge. For instance, Anambra State is no stranger to that. In fact, it currently has two powerful women representing it in the Senate. And we just concluded APGA primaries. We understand that the wife of the former governor, Mebele Obiano, clinched the ticket for a party. So we're starting to see perhaps some more women, within the Senate, at least from those states which have traditionally produced women. Whether there will be a conscious effort on the part, I'm not just asking women to get forms for free, but in terms of, ensuring that many more women participate and many more states show what their women can do is yet to be seen. But these ones that we've seen, shall we say congratulations to the ones that have clinched their tickets.
We didn't quite see it for, as I said, the presidential aspirant, the female presidential aspirant, Terry Oliver Dana in the PDP. She had one vote, but I'll tell you that one vote, we had people who didn't get a vote at all, aspirants in the People's Democratic Party. So that's actually a win. Gentleman and lady.
Well, Kayode, I have met Madam Tari Oliver at one point in my career, and I must tell you that she's a formidable woman who stands her ground among the men folk in politics. And Maokwe is right when she says that that they won in the first place is one thing to commend them for, because for you to be a female politician in a male-dominated field, you know, you have to have a mean streak. And nobody's talking about whether or not Madam Binani outspent, you know, the big men in the race. And she didn't win, you know.
Is it safe to say that
she was not victorious?
Is it safe to say that she had a good start with the consideration of the parties?
Had a good start.
I mean, you know, reduced costs and all of that.
Even if you had reduced costs, you still had to part with quite a lot of money. It's just a certain percentage of discount that the women get. You know, they still have to spend as much as 70 million naira.
How is it receipted? I'm just asking.
Well, we're going to have to carry out an investigation in that regard to know the bank balance of the APC, so that we can confirm that indeed what's being spent is not what's that thing you called it the other day.
It's not me. It's Kayode that quoted.
But there was a term you used. Maybe it's not computer money. Yeah, I think that's the word you used.
Which one?
Computer money.
No, audio money.
Audio money.
It's called audio money in the streets. Come on, it's audio money.
Yeah. So I think, you know, for whatever it is worth, we need to congratulate the women, whether, you know, they outspent the others in the delegate procurement process. The fact that they went that far and they got that far, and the fact that Madam Tari Oliver got one vote in the first place, you know, amongst the big men that she contested against, you know, we know that those men, you know, they have imposing CVs. Yeah. So in the coming days, we want to see more women just try to be bold in the first place, come out to contest, and let's see how it goes. Very soon, the women will realize that dream, you know, becoming a governor, you know. It doesn't matter whether Banani is going to win in Adamawa State or not, but that she won in the first place. I think that's what's important.
Well, it's a good start, really. But, you know, there's something that I've always believed, and I think it's something that is important for us to consider. If only we continued or sustained our successes, we wouldn't be where we are today on many fronts. Excuse me. And I was telling Kayode the other time that, you know, the issue of women in politics dates back many, many years. I remember, you know, history tells us that the Macpherson Constitution factored in the gendered election law in 1951. That's 6 years before we became independent. And of course, our policies had already begun to fledge at the time. And we can record down through history how powerful women held powerful offices. One of them is the one that Kayode talked about, Mama Taraba and the rest of them. So we've had that over the years. The question that you want to ask is, how have we sustained those successes? We're talking about women in politics now. For how long have we talked about young people in politics? Don't forget that in the early, even pre-independence, young people were the ones that were at the forefront of independence in this country. Where are the young people of today? So essentially, we have not sustained our successes. And I hope and pray that beyond the affirmative action, you know, conversations that we've been having over the years, let us sustain our successes.
The women would like to sustain their successes in politics.
It's not only for the women, that's my point.
It's the factors. The odds are against the women.
That's my point.
I think that's where the conversation, that's the crux of the conversation.
That is the point. And it's the political class that has to do this.
Because if you check the successes of young people at the early start of Nigerian politics, you find that the young people that dominated the scene were male. They were male.
It's very, very interesting.
Former military head of state, Yakubu Gowon, was 30 years old, male. You know, we can keep counting down the line. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, male.
So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things that need to be considered, and one is just wondering how those things are going to play out. So I don't know how this is going to work, but you know, we have begun this conversation, and
And we hope that the successes of these women we've talked about will be sustained.
And
that they will
have to.
emerge in a fair contest to either win or lose. And when they lose, it's not a discouragement, it's not a setback, but a preparation for a bigger comeback in the future.
Okay. So one of the questions you want to ask this morning is, how have these things been recorded, or how are they being reflected on the front pages of the papers? I guess we'll wait to see right after this break.
Well, let's start off with, well, the Daily Trust this morning. Really, you can almost tell what you see on the front pages, but this is where we start off. The Daily Trust newspaper has this one on the 2023 presidency, of course. That's off the back of the primaries, the PDP primaries we saw over the weekend. APC weighs options as Atiku shops for running mate. That's how the Daily Trust captions its big story this morning. You see riders, Southwest chieftains warn against Jonathan's candidature. Yet again, the former president is back in the news. Well, not like he ever left, really. Ex-VP's camp considers Okowa Udom. That's talking about Atiku Abubakar. PDP elders make case for Wike. It's a page 5 read, and you have pictures of, do we call them gladiators now? That's a term that came up over the weekend, courtesy you and Shil, and it's kind of stuck now. But I mean, you see frontliners, as you may call them. And, this one caught me. PDP elders make case for Wike, and, I mean, for the political pundits and the watchers, do they see maybe an Atiku and Wike ticket for the PDP? Well, the question is out there. Let us know what you think, by the way. You can talk to us on social media and, of course, send us a mail. What do you think about this permutation? Do you think they might look well, even for both parties, I mean, right now? It talks about, the vice president, former president, and all of that. So that's the lead on the front page of the Daily Trust. And, of course, there's another one, PDP primary, factors that worked in Atiku's favor. So there's more analysis coming out of that primary we saw over the weekend. It was maybe a shocker for a lot of people, some of the horse tradings and political moves, which some have said PDP is known for. Right next to that, the FCC arrests Yari over Accountant General's 80 billion naira fraud. It's a page 4 read. And just one more. After many years at National Assembly, Ekorimadu manager Dogara, others leave. So is it a new era? It's a page 8 read for you this morning. Let's leave it there for the Daily Trust.
Well, Vanguard has this, and I was refraining from saying anything, when you're trying to draw me into the conversation, and it was for good reason. But Vanguard has this on the front page. PDP, Wike, Okowa, Udom, Ayem on the cards for VP slot. That's also on the front page of the Vanguard. Tambuwal tipped for Senate presidency. Atiku can lead PDP to rescue Nigeria. That's from Okowa and Obaseki. He shouldn't use local champion as running mate. That's from Momodu. Exactly who is he referring to is unclear, but that is what he is said to have said. Peter Obi, Tinubu, hail Atiku, that's one of the riders. I'll defeat Atiku before 12 noon. If you might want to flip into the papers to see what condition, under what condition he will defeat former vice president.
Who said that?
Dave Umahi is credited with that statement. Atiku's emergence, an affront on the people of the South by PDP. That's from SMBLF. You might want to know the name, the full name or meaning of that acronym on page 5.
I think that's the Southern and Middle Belt. It is for.
Yes, so Southern and Middle Belt Forum. They have all the details for you. You know, following the choice, I'm sure that there'll be further analysis on this, but the chances are very high that when you do, when you go for an open contest within a party, it tends to divide.
Oh, yes.
You know, the people who will be for and against, and that sort of division still stands, and then you have to find ways to pacify members and, you know, make sure that you go into the general elections with one united front.
But is this pacifiable? That's the question.
That's a job that the PDP has on its hands right now. You also see this 2023 APC governors gang up against Jonathan. That story is on page 15. Italy-based Nigerian secretes 95 pellets of heroin at Abuja airport. That is also there. A very interesting story for you. I mean, there's been a lot around clerics in recent times, but look at this. Pope appoints Bishop Okwaleke, 20 others, new cardinals. That's one of the highest offices in the Catholic Church. It's on page 7 of the paper. And in case you've been following the story around Bishop Okwaleke and what happened when he was appointed bishop of one of the dioceses in the southeast, you might understand why this will make the front page of the Vanguard newspapers. A number of other stories. Okada riders on rampage set estate ablaze in Abuja. A very disturbing one. Page 6.
I think it was more of like the gatehouse or just the entrance. Really.
Well, that's how the Vanguard has chosen to couch it. Let's leave it there for the paper.
And from the Vanguard this morning, we're moving to the Guardian newspapers. And it's a potpourri of stories this morning if you take a close look. The big one, of course, is centered on politics. APC ticket. Buhari disowns Jonathan's presidential bid. And the riders are just as interesting. Falae is saying those calling for return of Jonathan as selfish. Buhari urged to endorse consensus for APC primary to save Nigeria. Atiku's emergence raising a front on southern Nigeria. That's coming from SMBLF, and it's couched thus: SMBLF fumes. Ndigo meets as Ohaneze rules out running mate slot. Obi Utomi, third force leaders, storm Asaba for Labour Party presidential primary today. That's bound to be interesting. And Catholic Secretariat deplores inducement of party delegates with money. Horiwa faults Atiku's emergence, warns APC against northern candidate. That's, details from the big story this morning, and you'll find all these details on page 6. There's a story on the top corner of The Guardian that's interesting. It says, Abuja Kaduna train attack, terrorists revoke threat to kill passengers. That's a relief, and it's a page 3 read from The Guardian newspapers. And lastly, from The Guardian, will Lagos go the whole hog on motorcycle ban? It's a big question.
Ayo.
Well, it is a question. I am not in a position to answer it. Well, Nigerian Tribune, I'm sure you just heard a voice. No, I'm going to come back to that later. PDP presidential primary, fresh issues over north-south balance. The stories you'll find on pages 2 and 26. Atiku's emergence, affront on South. SMBLF says PDP now a northern political party, ascribed to Ohaneze. You're a hero of the convention, Ayu tells Tambuwal. Why did he say that? Find out on the inside pages. It's time to uproot APC's bad governance. That's ascribed to Atiku. You find out the details of that on the inside pages, and right beyond under the picture you see on the front page, those calling for return of Jonathan are selfish, says Falae. Stories on page 3. Buhari's photos with him may no longer be published. No one will impose him on Tinubu, Amechi, others. That's ascribed to NWC member. Find the details there. And on the back pages, sports, Eagles lose to Mexico, or Mexico, whichever one you prefer, and several other stories on the back page. Now, there's a voice you haven't heard in a while, and that voice is that of... good morning.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good to see you guys again.
Well, shouldn't we be
and good to
you,
be back.
Where have you been?
God, I've been away.
Been to London to see the king?
Oh boy.
Welcome back.
What a time to be back.
Oh yes, you're always it's like you always calculate these things, Chamberlain.
Well, I don't know. It just happens.
And you were
No,
missed.
it's involuntary.
Oh really?
Sometimes.
Involuntary action that is deliberate.
With respect to that context of calculation. So it doesn't actually play out like that.
Now
Okay,
I'm lost.
Look, please remain lost, please.
I was a little lost when Kaide said we didn't see what we were expecting to see. And I said, wait a minute, I don't even know what I was expecting to see after agreeing, because you expect anything in Nigerian politics. That's the way these things happen. So
Wait a minute.
don't fret too much about some of
wants
these
to
things.
respond to your accusation first of all.
Maybe we should hear from Kayode.
It's not an accusation, just an observation.
Wait a minute. You people are setting me up. What am I responding to?
Well, he was saying something about what we're expecting to see. Then he qualified that, in fairness to him.
Thank
He
you,
qualified
Malkwe.
that
Oh,
and said,
thank you.
with regards to the women, emergence of women.
There you
go. Well, I guess he was expecting to see something else. Chamberlain, it's good to have you back.
Absolutely,
You need to
Chamberlain.
appoint me spokesperson, because I know how many queries I've answered on your behalf.
I should be deputy spokesperson then, really.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. I mean, it's good to be back, and it really is good to be back. Well, let me just go right ahead and take a look at New Telegraph this morning, and it's, of course, about the primaries. PDP race for VP slot begins after Atiku's emergence. And look at some of the riders. Obi's resignation from party favors South-South. Okowa Emmanuel tipped. Tambuwal positions for Senate. Atiku leads rebuilding process, woos aggrieved members, others. And then that SMBLF you were making reference to, they also have a version here. They reject party's candidate. So, there you go. But look at that at the bottom strip. It says, presidential primaries, CSN, Kaigama fret over money politics. Say, few Nigerians mortgaging nation's future. And then, is this interesting or what? The next one. Politicians buying votes are criminally liable, ascribed to lawyers. So sometimes you just wonder.
Since it's coming from lawyers, you may want to ask which law. But is there a law? Is there a specific law against vote buying? I would assume there is. Okay, so who is monitoring it? The FCC was on the convention. I'm sorry, on the convention grounds of the PDP. Is that something that's going to happen?
What constitutes vote buying?
Well, as you know, I'm not a lawyer, so.
Man, I'm just thinking a lot. I mean, is it if you see, quote unquote, assume you see a Ghana must go bag, you see with somebody carrying it at the venue, is that tantamount to vote buying?
Good question.
And then if you're giving somebody money on that premises, is it tantamount to vote buying? Because I think they said the law arrests you for what you've done, not your intention. Because if you're trying to break traffic or run the lights and you're looking left and right, can the police arrest you? You're planning to break the law. I'm arresting you.
Well, maybe they have seen the minority report.
And if aspirants are asking delegates for their account numbers, you know, during the campaign process, is it tantamount to vote buying?
You guys keep asking the questions. Let's go back to Abuja.
Okay, you know, if Sunrise Daily had a newspaper, the front page, the screaming headline would be Chamberlain resumes, ready to tackle the issues. But I'm taking a look at the leadership newspaper, so let me tell you what's on the front page. PDP presidential primary, how Tambuwal's withdrawal swung 182 Northwest votes for Atiku. Page 4, ex-VP's chant is also boosted by Northern power play. Situation saved him from fierce battle, emerging as party's presidential candidate. And you see this one, Fayose may have donated 16 votes to Wike to score 0 vote. Who's saying that? Because he, as a former governor, actually came out with no vote at all. And of course, this southern middle belt leaders react. So that's the main story. Clearly still off the primaries from over the weekend. And let me just give you this one. How Supreme Court ruling crumbled Rivers panel indictment of Amechi. So it looks like that's a perspective or an opinion. It's on page 41, and a couple of other stories, really. But let me just leave it there for the leadership newspaper this morning.
Well, just before I review what the Abuja inquiry is saying, we just got a bit of clarification on how the APC candidates for Adamawa State emerged. Now, they say simple arithmetic, that there are 226 wards with 5 delegates in each of the wards, and 2 women must emerge as delegates. So about 90% of women delegates voted, they believed in her candidacy and they voted for her. So,
I think
indeed, parties do have a role in ensuring that more women candidates emerge. But I think that the women themselves must have been able to sell themselves to the female focus. Of course,
because
I mean, there are women
PDP,
who are on the line oftentimes and they don't vote for fellow women if they don't believe in them.
Exactly.
But she's proven a mettle, essentially. But just to emphasize the point, that, you know, in a place where more women emerge as delegates, don't forget that we've seen, as a result of the non-signage of 84-8, this has now been, you know, the delegate system is now a little different somewhat. So it's been chosen from amongst the very ordinary people who are party folks who truly know their members, so to speak, and know the people that have done stuff for them. So that's how she emerged. There'll be questions as to how come other people haven't emerged. I mean, other women.
That's the point I was going to make, because we've seen female delegates and you see female aspirants and they get just one vote and you wonder, wait a minute, you clearly voted for other people, not your woman folk. But that's a conversation for another day.
Oh, well, let me look at what the Abuja Inquirer has on the front page for you. And this is what they have. FCT primaries. Okay, just making sure that this is the same one for this week. FCT primaries, aspirants spitfire over minister's aid's emergence. That's what they have for you. Accuse APC of manipulating process. Look at this. Rampage in Abuja as hit and run kill 3. That is also on the front page. And reactions as Ayu hails Tambuwal as hero of convention. A number of other stories just beneath the nameplate, but I'll leave you to do that. They also have sports on the back page for you. Man United roll out consultancy role for Ragnick. I'm sure those who are following what happened this weekend at the UEFA finals. I mean,
don't remind some people.
Another type of finals was playing out here in the country. So.
And some people are watching both. I'm like, this is a headache. You can't watch the PDP convention and the UEFA finals at the same time. But, hey, you know,
well, let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
And that's it with a look at the front pages this morning. Clearly interesting stories. But we're back with the first topic of the day. We're taking on the major issues, and you don't want to miss this. Join us again.
"25 voting booths, 14 ballot boxes, 13 aspirants, and 767 accredited delegates. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, is about to make a major decision concerning the 2023 presidential election. However, shortly before the commencement of voting, there's a twist of event as Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State announces his withdrawal from the race.
Those who are delegates here should vote for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, PDP.
That leaves the field for 12 aspirants as the voting process commences.
31.
The delegates file out according to their states, called out in alphabetical order. They are checked one after the other before proceeding to cast their votes. After about 2 hours, voting ends and the sorting of votes commences. Then the votes are counted.
Udom Emmanuel Gabriel. 1, 2.
A total of 764 votes are cast. 12 votes are void, as the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar polls 371 votes, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State polls 237 votes. Former Senate President Bukola Saraki polls 70 votes. Governor Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State polls 38 votes. Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State polls 20 votes. Former Senate President Pius Ayim polls 14 votes. Mazi Sam Nwabua and the only female in the race, Diana Tari Oliver, polls 1 vote each.
I, Senator David Alecheno Bonaventure Mark, GCON, hereby return Atiku Abubakar as the winner of the election. He is hereby returned elected.
Congratulations.
In his acceptance speech, Mr. Atiku Abubakar calls for the unity of the party.
I will work to ensure I restore unity and I give a sense of belonging to all Nigerians, irrespective of their places of origin and irrespective of the faith they practice. I also committed that I was going to deal decisively with our security challenges in this country.
This is the second time the PDP will be giving its presidential ticket to Mr. Atiku Abubakar, the first being in 2019 when he lost to the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, that's precisely what we're talking about this morning. Should we say 2 mornings after? Because normally when you wake up, there's always the morning after. But Sunday was that morning. Today is Monday. And we have with us this morning one of the participants in the PDP presidential primary. Mazi Sam Nwabua joins us. He's the PDP presidential aspirant. Welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you.
We also have with us Senator Shehu Sani, who's also a member of the People's Democratic Party and had also contested to be a governor under the platform of the PDP in Kaduna State. Senator, you're welcome to Sunrise Today this morning.
Thank you.
Well, finally, the primaries are done. This is what we saw, that the PDP decided to go for open secret ballot. For a number of people, they say that that is certainly something worth celebrating. Do you agree with them? Let me come to you, Mazi.
Well, I think that was a good development because I think it was part of the decision of the leadership of the party to make the primaries as transparent and as open as possible. And I think this was a good attempt to ensure that that happened.
So do you think that that reflects the number of people that you were able to appeal to through going by the votes that you scored?
Well, most voters were influenced by different factors. I had always thought there were 3 things that could make somebody vote for you. One would be the profundity of your thoughts, your ideas, what you want to achieve by coming to the office, what I call your vision. The other would be how you are able to convince him either directly or through third parties, what we call influencers. And of course, in Nigerian politics, the other is the effect of money. So by the time you see the votes, imagine you see that there's a skewed, the voters came up to that decision facing different influences. So it did not reflect what I was hoping, but that was the reality of what we confronted.
Well, of the 3 factors, what were your strongest points? There's 3
My
factors you
vision.
mentioned.
My vision, I had ideology. Everybody told me, look, this is what Nigeria needs. They need a new Nigeria. They need people like you with competence, experience, and character. But you know, this is Nigeria. This is Nigeria. They kept telling me this is Nigeria. I said, we think this country should change, you know, in terms of how it decides to select its leadership. Because if we keep doing the same thing, we're likely going to be getting the same answers. That was our preaching. Now, each time we spoke, they say, you preached very well. But we knew that that wasn't all that was needed to be done in the context.
Do you feel betrayed that, I mean, from your state, you didn't even get the 17 votes, which, I mean, we'll expect that it's a given at least. That's where you're from. 17 delegates should naturally be behind you. Do you feel betrayed by the delegates from your state first?
Well, I feel disappointed. I feel disappointed that it happened that way, but then it's the nature of politics and the nature of the level of the structures of delivering political thoughts and opinions in what we have in this country. There's a lot of capture, a lot of influence that sometimes doesn't allow the individual voter to exercise much discretion. If somebody who has a lot of influence, political, financial, puts you and says this is where you should go, very many people have the lever to follow their conscience. And many also have the difficulty in seeing money and ignoring it, especially when it's substantial. So it's human behavior. Are you looking at today, the benefits of today? Are you looking at tomorrow or the day after? So there are all kinds of considerations in coming to a conclusion in deciding who to vote. And it happened here. And let's be true, this is not the first time. During the last PDP election in Port Harcourt, the same way, the same pattern. And so it's nothing new. So if those were only hoping that it was going to get better with the entrance of people like us who represented different view, different worldview, different perspectives, that it could moderate things, you know, that were more willing to listen to what you're saying and the kind of change or difference you make. But that didn't seem to cut the eyes.
Well, distinguished, let me ask you, I mean, you have been a very keen observer of the process and you've also been an active participant in your state. I'd like to know whether the results proved any surprise for you.
Thank you for having me in your program once again. Well, our democracy is 22 years old. And it is expected that each time you have an election, there should be some form of improvement in the way the quality and the transparency of the electoral process unfolds. But it is clear that despite attempts to reform our elections for the better, there are gray areas and dark areas that remains unchanged for years. To me, I believe that if this democracy is to survive, and if democracy is to really live up to its name as a democracy, those ingredients that made it possible for people to participate, either as electorate or as aspirants or as candidates, must be seriously taken care of to ensure that the game is played according to the rules. I participated in the election, and I have seen that there is no better time for us as a people and as a nation to focus on the way aspirants emerge as candidates than now. And I believe whatever government that is going to take over power, and whoever is going to take over power, and hopefully it will be the People's Democratic Party, this issue needs to be squarely addressed. I particularly has shown concern in the way aspirants canvass for votes, because we are not canvassing for votes based on policies and programs and agenda candidates have. We are simply in a bidding process. The primaries was more of a bidding process, more like an auction you have in eBay and other Sotheby, where you go meet the delegates and then they tell you what your opponents have offered them and you are to top it up for them to vote for you. So, despite the fact that that was what has happened, but I believe that for the fact that the opposition, the main opposition in the country, has been able to conduct its primaries peacefully and winners emerged, I think this is the time for us to do the needful. Because if you don't address money politics, the idea of delegates turning the whole primaries into a market, we will not have candidates. We simply have businessmen, people who bought positions of power. And in a country like ours, where everyone or majority of people agree that the problems of Nigeria is leadership. So how can credible leaders emerge when you have to pay to be voted? And I believe that one of the things which I did clearly as an aspirant was to set the face by saying, I am not going to give you money. You vote for me based on my policies and agenda, or else you do what you vote for other persons. And somebody needs to say no. And that person who needs to say no has to be a person who is a participant in that. Once candidates or aspirants begin to say that they are not going to give money, Nigeria's politics would eventually change. Yes.
So clearly, pardon me, those that emerged from what you have said are those who spent the highest.
There is no doubt about it. In most cases, people who emerge, but it's in two ways also. At the state level, when they say delegates, you ask yourself, and they say elected delegates, you need to ask them, when were these people elected? Many were simply not elected. They were names submitted by party chieftains in the state and then appointed as delegates. And they make sure that before you become a delegate, you are prepared to do what they want you to do, and you can see the quality of people that are always appointed as delegate and so-called elected delegates. You will see that they are there for somebody and for something. And until that area is seriously challenged, we will continue to have problems with our electoral system. Take, for example, when the issue of electoral reform came, and there was this prescription that candidates should only be elected through direct primaries, you can see the uproar among the political elites, the godfathers, the governors, because they knew that that was the narrow gate. The delegate system is the narrow gate where only those they want to be in power will be in power. No matter your programs, your policies, your agenda for people of your state, as long as you are in a major political party that is likely to take over power, if you don't have money to share to delegates, you will never have the opportunity. And unfortunately, we seem to have accepted or embraced or surrendered to the fact that this is the way the Romans do. So when you're in Rome, you should do as they do. But how can a country that is opposed to ransom payment, that is opposed to match fixing, now has itself unconscionably accepted bribery through a political process for leaders to emerge? It was done in the APC, and it is in the PDP. And this has been going on, and nobody is saying anything. Delegates are there for money. Money was shared to delegates at all levels. And if people will not discuss this issue, then we should forget about corruption, forget about talking about anti-corruption and whatever. Because the very foundation where our leaders emerge is so decadent and rotten, because people were not emerging as leaders because they have programs on education, on health, on whatever. They emerged as leaders because there was a bidding process. And then a governor of a state knew very well that if you have a direct primaries where card-carrying members are going to vote, then it is very unlikely that he will have his way. And godfathers know that that will be the, what will break the camel's back. Because most candidates who are either anointed by anybody or who were favored by anybody will not like a system where they have to provide themselves for public scrutiny. In a typical ward of a political party, major political party, you have nothing less than, like in northern part of Nigeria, you have nothing less than 20 to 30,000 members. But you only have 3 delegates. So if these 20,000 members are going to vote, and you can't share $10,000 to each one of them, money is not there.
I thought $35,000 was the highest bid.
Well, I don't know, because I don't have proof of that, but I knew that that was the system. When I contested this governorship in Kaduna State, before the elections, on 2 days, I have to make it clear on my social media handle that I am not going to give 1 kobo to anybody. And not that, few minutes before the primaries started, the voting started, all the delegates were in the hall, and other candidates have made their offer. And then when it comes to me, I say, well, you look at my face, I look at yours. I am here and for a state that has been besieged by banditry. People are being killed every day. And for a state that needs serious leadership and intervention that rescues. If you think the best way for us, for you people, and for the people of the state, is to elect leaders who give them money, then we have not suffered enough. Let's continue to live where we are, under bandits and terrorists, and continue to collect money and elect people who will give you money. And because of that, many didn't. I was in fact expecting nobody to vote for me. So before the counting started, I just went back home. So I then was called to hand that 2 people voted for me without giving them anything.
And that's something to celebrate. That's something to cheer.
Well, for the fact that I got 2 votes without giving anybody anything, I think it's a sign for Nigeria that if we who can have the courage to defy the corruption system and the delegate system, we will reach where we need to.
Mazi, so we've seen, I mean, from what both of you have said, it looks like there are a lot of flaws in this whole build-up. And, I mean, the PDP still wants to get power. That's the goal. Do you think it's moral, then, to want to achieve, to want to clean the nation, as it were, economically, security-wise, when the build-up in itself is flawed?
Well, you see, there's a culture, there's a political culture, and everywhere culture takes time to change. We came into the game to try and change that culture. And you know, culture cannot be changed by one day, except you did a revolution, a violent revolution. So I think the culture change we have planted the seed. When you say it's called 2 votes, it's called 1, violence called 1, you now know that at least there is 1 man, or there are 2 men with conscience. Maybe to build up as we move on. It's a cultural thing. It's when I came into the game, of course, I even said I wasn't going to buy drinks. I wasn't going to give logistics. You come to a meeting and everybody walk out on you. I say, this man, is this?
They actually walked out on you?
Yeah, they say, are you serious? You know, it is a cultural thing. It's like if you greet a politician good morning, he expects you to leave some money. If he greets you good morning, you also, it's just a culture. That's what I found out. So we began to fight that culture. And at some point, it was a tough job. But people left us and came back. You know, just like you said, if we insist enough, if we persist enough, change cannot happen when everybody is compliant and take it as granted. Becoming president or becoming governor shouldn't be by all means. It's a sacrifice you want to make of your comfort, of your person, and even of your life. Why would you therefore spend so much money to serve people? It doesn't fit into my understanding, but that is the culture. Now, it is a national issue. It's symptomatic of the corruption that we have. So we can't take it away from one point. It's how do you holistically deal with corruption, from the taxi driver, the carpenter, the motor mechanic, down to the official political corruption. The federal government executive corrupts the legislature. The they scrub the judiciary. You know, corruption is endemic and visible in the nation, and we're doing it. I hear EFCC was around, ICPs was around. I said, okay, who are they coming to arrest? Is it the people who are giving or the people who are collecting? There is a major issue for our country, but as somebody told me, one of the chairmen, he said, Sir Mazi, what you have said, the way you are going is the best way. Nigeria can get it better, but you can't change it from outside. Go and look for money, wherever you can get it, come in, then you can change it. That's what is important. You must be inside to change it. You know, so my hope is that someday somebody who gets in, or those who have gotten in now, will then decide, I've come this way. This is not the way this country can become globally competitive. Can't change much if you invest 16 billion naira or 6 billion naira or 10 billion naira in one activity. I don't know what is the intentment, how will that money be recouped? Because for me, it's not a business, it's a sacrifice. We're making a sacrifice. So there is problem.
I know that my colleagues in Lagos can't wait to get their questions in. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, let me start with Senator Sani. When you speak about us trying to address this question of money politics, it's an important conversation to have. So could you shed some light on this for us, if you will? So how did you then emerge as senator while you were in the APC? Do we take it for granted that you equally shared money at that time?
Well, I think as I'm conducting this interview, the people of Kaduna State are also listening and watching. And the people of the party that I was part of were also watching. In 2014, I told them in clear terms, unambiguously, that I'm not going to pay delegates or excos, and I was voted. That was a fact. So I did the same thing this time around. The last time I succeeded, but this time I didn't. But I believe that if we are going to change the system, somebody has to say no to it. And by saying no, it comes with consequences of losing the seat. But by saying no also, it opens a platform for a national conversation on the corruption in the delegate system. And it also opens a platform where the future generations of Nigerians can aspire for public office. I have a little daughter. Her name was Iman. She was contesting for a school prefect in primary school. And then she came back a day after the election and told me she lost. And I asked her, what happened? She said her opponent, who was, my daughter is 10 years, and her opponent was also 10 years. She told me that her opponent offered to share phones to the teachers and also to the electorates, and then they voted for her. And I said, okay, you shouldn't grieve that you lost, and let us see whether she's going to give them. Then after a week, she came back to tell me that everybody was attacking and criticizing and insulting her opponent. After making false promises, she was not able to share phones to everyone. So it has gone to that level. People, when you are going into politics as a fresher, what people will tell you is get money. Yeah. So it means that that is the only channel for which you get into power. In my own state, a single delegate for a federal constituency were given 3 million naira each. 3, and that is for a whole ward. You spend 9 million.
You have that on good authority, and Senator.
The second person was trying to offer $5,000, but they say we have 3 million naira here.
Can you hear me, Senator?
Your 5,000. So, and you must top it up before.
I hope you can, because Senator, can you hear me? The funds that you made reference to that was given to delegates, do you have that on good authority that that actually happened?
It is not only good authority, it's on best authority. So if you want to be very clear, I think Nigerians, we just have to tell ourselves we shouldn't be hypocritical about these things here. People are giving delegates money. And somebody said if we can pay for a form of 50 million naira for governorship or 21 million naira for governorship under the People's Democratic Party, why can't we pay delegates?
Okay,
What I
so
told them
that
I
would
was given
mean...
a receipt for what I paid.
So, Senator,
but no delegate would give you any receipt.
That will mean that the AFCC or the ICPC will have no excuse whatsoever not to ask questions of certain people because they can't afford to say, well, we didn't see anything. So now that this is out there, they should be able to act. But while you were in APC, I mean, you were a senator, you should have more information than those who were outside. At the time that President Buhari contested and emerged, what transpired? Was money shared? How did he emerge? Because the impression is he didn't share money, but he emerged as president. So is that something that we can latch onto if that was what happened?
There are two ways to which money can be shared. But I think that question can best be answered by the Jagaban, because he was the leader of those who worked for Buhari's emergence in the primaries in Lagos. So he is the best. Try and invite him to this program to ask whether money was shared. But what I know very well is that it's a situation where the candidate either pays or somebody pays for him. And many people who emerged who don't have money certainly have a godfather. So if you can't get money from the candidate, certainly there is a godfather who has done the job for him behind the scene. And what we should not fail to address is the very fact that as long as a system exists where leaders can only emerge if they give bribe, because we don't just call it money, it's bribe. You pay bribe in cash to delegates to vote for you. If we cannot address that issue, we should, whoever wins doesn't win because he doesn't have programs or policies. Whoever loses is not losing or has not lost because he doesn't have good policy or program. It's simply about what you give or what you refuse to give.
So, Senator, the EFCC were on ground during the PDP presidential primary. What difference did their presence make? What's the implication of their presence at the primary?
I think their presence is just symbolic and comical as in that very sense, because if we are going to get down to the issue of this delegate system, there has to be a separate commission that should be established to monitor political spending. And one of the things that need to be done is that whoever is going to be a delegate or a party executive must go to declare his asset and provide his bank details to such authority. And then what does he have before he become an exco of the party, and what has he gotten after he has become just the way public servants and elected officials do. There must be a system that you monitor funds and the way party executives are. But you see, delegates as they are now just come in to be delegates just some few weeks before elections. Sometimes you'll be invited by the person who wants to use you and said, I will appoint you a delegate. And then the party in the state will come with a list and say, these are the elected delegates. And if they are not sure of those delegates, they can change them 24 hours before the election. And then you will have paid the wrong delegate, and then some set of delegates will be brought in to the venue to vote for you. And before you can know it, an announcement is made that a winner has emerged, and then you go to court or wait for an appeal. And the appeal is not different from what has actually happened on the ground.
All right, we've got a few more grounds to cover, but we'll go to break, and when we return, we'll take on some of those other questions. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Today. We're trying to just have another look at what transpired at the just concluded PDP primaries, both at the national and then state level. We've got two gentlemen in our studios in Abuja who are trying to shed light on some of what transpired that needs to be corrected if we need to have a lot more integrity in the electoral process. Mazi Ohabawa, good to see you. Let me ask you, well, before you got into the fray, you must have studied the system, trying to gauge what's happening before you decided to say, you know what, I will take this plunge. So there's so many professionals like yourself who are there just watching and listening to you. Some of them will be discouraged seeing what's going on, saying, look, what's the point of us getting in? Because we have no intention or that kind of deep pocket, as both of you gentlemen have alluded to. What would you say now to such persons who at the moment think, should I? Is there hope or not?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good to see you. I was wondering where you've been. For me, this is not new. And the reason some of us are coming in at this time was that we're afraid of this. We had tried to circulate and circumvent this by going into advocacy, you know, chairman of MAN, chairman of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, this, that, Vision 2010. It was a way of trying to avoid confronting the monster. But, you know, you get to a point in your life, you just can't continue to run away from something that you think you have a strong motivation for, and you have to confront it. I'm not completely disappointed. The only area I feel that I thought we have dented this a little bit with some of the few guys that came ahead of us. We thought that maybe we have begun to shift towards policy. I mean, I was the only guy who presented a policy document at our primary, you know, which I eventually handed over to the, and I hope they will use it, the party will use it. The thing is that I would encourage everybody not to run away. Maybe the earlier you started, the better, so that, you know, over a couple of cycles, we can hope that. But you see, the truth is that there won't be a change until the leadership decides there will be a change. The whole problem we have in our country is because of the inept leadership on a continuous, sustainable basis. The moment you have a leadership that is angry enough against this wholesome endemic corruption in our system, whether it is political, whether it is non-political, change will come. But if we have leaders who are compliant, who are just willing to go on with it, and it's just left to those of us on the stage, get bashed, and then move on, I don't think it's going to change.
Well, you began the other time. Example, my apologies, Mazi. One of the things that you said earlier that, you know, tickled me, piqued my interest was, you talked about the culture in the political parties. And I'm wondering if that culture is something that is legislated. Well, I would assume it is unwritten. So is there a way, a role for the political parties to play in ensuring that we decimate as much as possible the role of money in politics? I'm saying this because if, for instance, the parties can orchestrate a way in which the delegates come into the system and ensure a strict monitoring of the process, maybe it could help. So are you in any way saying, or rather, if this is what we have on our hands, are the parties, the establishment themselves, complicit?
To be sincere to you, we can't deal with this business of dealing with corruption piecemeal. It will not work. It requires leadership at the topmost level. It doesn't matter how you emerge. The current people who are going to emerge or who have emerged can take a decision and say, yes, we have come, just like what President Yar'Adua said. He said the election that brought us to power was the most, corrupt. We are going to do something to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's where this kind of change can start.
That's because for government.
The party leaders you are talking about.
Mazi, just 1 second. That's for the government. Yes, we're going to talk about the political parties themselves, because we don't know which party is going to come to the top at the federal level, and we don't know which party is going to emerge at the state levels where there will be elections. So is there a role for the political parties who bring up these delegates themselves to ensure that its principles over the pockets, over profits.
The question is, how did the political leaders themselves emerge? The people are placed there by the same godfathers who are preparing for election, and they make sure that those who are in the party leadership are people who work in their favor. That's the truth. So it is endemic. It is built from the foundation up. So if you have people who are at that level, who are already beholden to certain interests, then everything else will begin to fall apart. But I just imagine, and I think that's the way it can be solved. It doesn't matter. It's a corrupt system. There is no way you can minimize it. But let somebody arrive at the top, the party leaders, the presidential candidates, whoever it is, say, okay, so far we can't go beyond this place. We've come this far. Let us determine to make a change. That is when it is going to work. And it can start with the political parties in a way. But even the demand side is from the voters, and what we are saying at delegate level, sometimes replicated at the common, at the general elections. People are asking for money, and if you don't bring money, they go to who brings money. And the moment there's a demand, supply will follow. So it is going to be a holistic national thing. Treating it in parts and bits will not work. We need a national revolution in terms of working against this system of a corrupt system that each person is looking to take advantage and extort things from other people.
I'm sure that you already did say that you do not expect the system to change overnight.
Yeah.
On a how do I put it now, on a clearer basis, what did you really think that your chances were in the polls?
My chances were that I have always believed that things change someday. Okay? I mean, you can see an iroko tree standing. Maybe it's been eaten up by termites inside. But one small breeze can get it fall. It happens. Every civilization ends. Every fight ends. The point is, what at point is it going to end?
Yeah, but I mean,
so that was my hope.
I want you to project more realistically. How many people did you believe were going to vote for you when you looked at your projections?
I thought more people have voted for me. I mean, people from my state. There were a couple of people, even that morning, who assured me that, look, we want a change. It's not about money. Mazi, we want a change. We'll vote for you. Some even said, if we vote for you, we're going to put a sign behind our vote so that you know that we voted for you. But when they counted one vote for me, I was wondering what happened to all those promises. And the only way I can is poverty of mind and poverty of the pocket. Because, guys, somebody makes you promises by mouth. I'm going to make sure that when we come to power, things will be well. We're going to create a level playing ground. Everybody will be prosperous. Than somebody who sees $20,000 plus 10 plus 10 plus 15, all kinds of monies that have been measured. So they just succumb. That's the only way. Then two is the impact of the leadership, executive leadership at different states. The leaders of those groups give them order. One person told me when I went to campaign, he said, Mazi Sam, you're such a wonderful guy. We wonder where people like you have been. However, I see all this people you are talking to will not do anything for you. He was so plain in one of the Southwest. Me, he's a professor. All of us can't do nothing for you. Go and meet the man who is our commander, who is like what they call, they say, the owners of the delegates. I said the last time I heard about owners was during slavery in the U.S., slave owners. Do you mean that there are delegate owners? They said yes.
Would you say that also revealed just how, will I say, I'm looking for the right word now, how naive you were about just how your party truly works?
Yeah, it's not my party. It's how the whole system works. The smaller the party, the worse. Because in the smaller party, they expect me to bring all the money to set up the system. Where am I going to get the money from? It's worse in the smaller parties. This one, you already have a system. You can even have people to talk to.
No, I'm just saying you're not a new member of the PDP, are you?
Yes, so what I'm saying is not being naive. It is a question of being optimistic and hopeful that things do change. My sister, things do change. They say if you are not in the market, you never meet the good market day. If you are waiting at home to know the good market that you not. You go to the market, you meet bad market, you be good market. I was hoping I was going to meet good market. And the game is not lost.
Okay.
Because we're
it's because the reason I'm asking this is because of the revelations you're making in terms of how people told you that you should go to the owners of the delegates, etc., etc. And you said that, well, the last time I heard about owners was in the time of slavery.
Yes.
So it does show that maybe you didn't quite understand just what had been in place before now. That's what I'm asking.
Well, it is the question of being optimistic.
Okay.
That things do change. When you chip at them, when you have the Shehu Shanis, when you have all those who have come, who've tried, you were hoping, and when you come through the system you've come through, and the experience you have, you just hope that things will get better.
Work out.
I wasn't expecting that it was going to be a dramatic change.
Okay, so let me also pose this, because, you know, before now there had been permutations. Your party decided to throw this open and jettison zoning.
Yeah.
And I do know that the Southeast did make a pretty strong appeal towards that. There was a Greater Nigeria Conference, which which was held across political parties, and we saw a lot of Southeast aspirants attending that particular conference. It didn't seem to have made any impact, at least not within the PDP. How do you think that the results that emerged from your party, what do you think it portends for the unity? I know that the current candidate is, coming out and saying that he's the unifier, etc., etc. But what do you think it portends for the unity of the party and also the country?
There is a fragility. And that's speaking the truth. This country has been known to operate on north-south, even within the constitutions of the party, north-south, zoning or rotation. Now, if we have a place where we have jettisoned side, there's a consequence. I said that from the beginning, that the party must be sure that it has considered the pros and cons of the party is superior to my wish or individual wish. It can take its decision, but be ready to live with it. For certain, there are going to be centrifugal forces that will unleashed because of the way things are working. So it creates a great challenge for the presidential candidate in our own party, Atiku, and I don't know who will emerge in other parties, to make a conscious effort, because I'm saying this over and over again. The only hope we have for change in Nigeria is that the leader that emerges, it doesn't matter how he emerged, just decide to say, I've emerged through this corrupt system, I'm going to bring it to an end. I've emerged through this system that's inequitable, it's full of injustice, I'm going to correct it. That's why I still refer to President Yar'Adua, bless his memory. He stated, he admitted, because the redemption starts with accepting and then confessing, and then you become able to receive. So we believe that there's going to be some issues, both as a south and as a southeast. Of course, as you saw, the southeast, despite all that we say, didn't show unity in the election that you saw. Most of the southeast delegates voted for non-southeast people. So that created more confusion. And even before now, when this case was being fought, some of our southeast leaders were already supporting other candidates who are not south. So it's even confused the party people to decide, should we give this to the southeast? They don't seem to be united. If their leaders are already rooting for other people, what should we do? So that also, I think, must have affected the parties from taking a final decision.
Well, Senator Sonny, so from the onlookers, as it were, they see a party, PDP, your chairman is from the north. Now your presidential candidate is also from the north. And there's this fragility that Mazi has even referred to in the nation, the thinking, saying, let it go to the south, even the southeast. And it's been on and on. What do you think this does for the optics of politics in Nigeria?
Well, you see, you are trying to tally morality and politics in two ways. The problem we have is that each time you try to bring the ingredients of morality into politics, you will be confronted by realities that are opposed to what you're trying to do. Ideally, this is a country that has come through storms and turbulence. And those who prescribe the idea of rotation of power is to ensure equity that all parts of the country should be able to produce a leader. And knowing the demographic disadvantages as it is, variations, there are parts of the country that if you leave it open, it will be impossible for them to produce a leader. And if you look at the theory or hypothesis behind quota system, it's about that.
Yeah.
A section of the country is seen to be educationally advantaged, and one section is educationally disadvantaged. And quota system was introduced to protect the weak and those who were behind. But we have accepted that as part of a national policy, laws, and our constitution. But in politics, we refuse to accept that. So the idea of zoning or rotating power is to tackle some of these issues that have threatened our existence as unity as a country, and that is continuously becoming a problem to us. Mazi is from the southeastern part of Nigeria. Likewise, likewise Peter Obi and Bonna Onu and others. But if we are going to be realistic with ourselves, that is the only part of the country that in the last 22 years has neither produced a president or a vice president. And that part of the country is now, there are people in that part of the country that are taking advantage of the fact that if we are not wanted here, then we should leave. So if you disappoint Mazi, you are falling into the hands of separatists. So in a situation like this, we must put it in our constitution. We must include in our constitution, in our laws, how these issues can be addressed. If we throw it open, certainly there are parts of the country that will never smell or taste power for a very long time. I come from the most populous zone, which is northwestern part of Nigeria. And I believe that if every zone is to be judged based on the number of people that either registered to vote or voted, my own part of the country will continue to produce a leader for as long as possible.
Which is why
but the problem we have is this, that of what use is it if we say this is a democracy and then one part of the country continues to dominate political leadership. Yeah. But like he has said, there is a political culture, and you get through it and you reform the process.
That's all.
There were so many expectations when Buhari came into office that there will be reforms. Being a man who has struggled, who has fought for many years to be on the throne, and he became. So it was expected that he will stamp his feet and march on forces, entrenched forces, and even offend so many people to do what is right. But each time in this country, you bring the idea of electoral reform, whether it is through West Panel or Ken Namani or anybody, you will see a lot of resistance, whether it's electronic voting, whether it's PVC, whether it is direct primaries, because people see electoral reform as an attack on their own power base.
Yes.
There is no inch of a Nigeria, the land called Nigeria, is no inch that is not controlled by a godfather. You can see if you are moving from here to Kaduna, you see the bush where bandits are.
But
there's a political godfather that controls that area.
Interesting.
Yes.
Particularly now, I'm talking about the fragility. Do you think it further puts it in a precarious situation if this goes north again from 2023?
No. Well, for now, the political leaders of the opposition party have already, and the party has resolved and has voted for its candidate. So the expectation now is that the new leader who will emerge as a president, and that should be Atiku Abubakar, being a man who has been in a position of power for a very long time with such experience and profile, he has a historic duty to do what Buhari has failed to do, for equity and for justice. Even at least for once, let us have a system where all Nigerians will feel that they have a stake in the enterprise called Nigeria.
In fact, let's go south now to our Lagos studio for equity and fairness. My colleagues would like to ask you a few questions. Back to you guys.
Kadi, speaking of equity and fairness, I'd like to take you back a bit to Markwe's point, and closely related to that is the Southern Middle Belt's reaction to the outcome of the primaries, saying that it is an affront and that the political elite does not consider the unity of the country to be important. And closely related to that, Mazi, is the Southeast agitation for a presidency of Southeastern extraction. But if we look at the outcome of the results, you got 1 vote, and Senator Ayim Parasayim, who is also of Southeast extraction, got 14 votes. What does this say about the seriousness of the clamor for a presidency of Southeast extraction?
Well, for me, like I said, I was disappointed, and many Nigerians are disappointed. And if the people of the Southeast are serious about it, they should have shown so by the election. But the truth is that those who elected, the few that elected, do not represent the Southeast at all. As Comrade Sheikh Hussaini said, how did they come to be? Many of them were selected, some were elected. So they're a small number. The majority opinion does not represent what we see. So we will not read this to mean that the Southeast is not interested. They are. The mainstream people do, the youths want, and the rest of the people of the Southeast. But it is true that the symbolism exhibited by these people who voted is condemnable, because I wouldn't see how I would come to people will come and they will not vote for the Southeasterners whatever influence. Even if it's money, there must be some considerations bigger than money. You can collect money and still vote your conscience or show that you truly want this movement. So I do believe that at the end of the day, rationality and, like Shehu has said, let the emergent presidential candidates and ultimate president of the country, again, as we all agreed, must be the PDP candidate. Let him decide. That's what history will remember him for, to reform the electoral system and give the people of
just
Nigeria
one second. You said earlier, Mazi, just one second.
The electoral process.
Just one second, Mazi. You said earlier that, following up on Bukola's questions just now, you said that, well, you've said that you were disappointed. But then you also spoke to the seeming disunity within the rank and file of the Southeast. So perhaps that's the question that Bukola is asking. If there is such a disunity, so to speak, and that you said that many people also didn't particularly agree whether or not to go in a particular tangent, doesn't that also suggest that it's just talk, a desire, not necessarily a will to actually select someone of Southeast extraction? Even though it is a clamor, there seems to be no unity as to whether or not and to whom should have been put forward by the Southeast unitedly.
Well, the thing is that is symptomatic of what goes on. I'll give you an example. The South people, the leader, Feni Ferayu Adebanjo, has said the Southwest should not contest. But there are not Southwestern people contesting, So it's just that there's a kind of discordance between what the political elite want or are saying and what the people are saying. That dichotomy exists even in the national. What the country wants and what the political elite wants sometimes do not agree. So I agree in essence that it gives a sense of lack of unity. It does. And those who say so cannot be blamed because the evidence seems to suggest so. But let's not worry about what these 90 people or 96 people or 100 people who voted. Let's think about the majority of the people. And even not thinking about that, they didn't even, the call for equity justice and fair play just says that do the right thing for the people. It doesn't matter whether they are fighting for it or not. Let every child, let every person in the country get his due share. Let's consider the weak. Let's consider the disadvantaged, those who cannot yell or shout. We must not deny them that opportunity, because we must give them a sense of ownership so that they can bring their best. This country needs everybody pulling together to pull us out of this economic doldrum that we have and move us to a prosperous nation that we desire for all, that is safe and secure. And if you do not enthrone justice, then peace is threatened.
So, Mazi, just one more from here, for me. You know, we've seen the statements from Ohanaeze saying, well, they will not back the winner of the PDP primaries. They will not go too far ahead. What do you think is the implication of all that you've said about the party giving a very serious consideration to a candidate or an aspirant of Southeast extraction? Is this likely going to have any major impact on the chances of Atiku Abubakar in the future?
Well, it depends on how the party handles it. Every situation can be handled as bad as it could be. And I would like to offer my suggestion to my party leadership using this platform, that yes, what has happened, and the Southeast people are not happy, the mainstream, and other Nigerians who consider justice, equity, and fair play as an important ingredient to bring Nigeria back to where we want it to go. So it is now left to the party leadership to take whatever preemptive action they need to take to assuage the Southeast and the South and whatever other people that feel they are being left out. It is the responsibility of our presidential candidate, Atiku, and the leadership to do that. If they don't, certainly every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Right. And you can't beat a child and tell the child not to cry.
Well, some will then say that it makes sense that Mr. Peter Obi left the PDP before the primaries, because maybe the same fate will have been his portion as well. But I'm curious, would you be willing to accept maybe a vice presidential slot?
Well, the issue is that, as I said in 2019, what happened today happened in 2019. There's nothing new. It's the same system. So we cannot pretend that it's just a new development. But the issue is that I have volunteered, I have a heart to serve Nigeria. I'm willing to make the sacrifice. And whatever opportunity presents, I will certainly consider it. It's not about me. It's about redeeming this country. It's about creating future for our children and grandchildren. It's about uniting us and making us emerge as a globally competitive nation that will be at peace with itself and respected. So whatever role that God grants me to advance that vision, I will gladly take.
Interesting. We're winding down now, but Senator, I needed to land on a point you were making earlier. You were talking about forests and how these forests have even godfathers. Am I right?
Yeah, what I'm trying to say literally is that every inch of the territory called Nigeria is controlled by a certain godfather, whether it's local or statewide or regional. So in that respect, those godfathers will always attempt to reform our elections as being an intrusion into their own power base. But this is a historic opportunity for the opposition to get to power and do what is right. And what is right specifically is exercising the evil of money in politics that will make it easier, simpler, and possible for men and women of integrity to aspire for public office and be elected into office. That is the only way we can go about it. The election, the primaries has come and gone. Let us rally round the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, for him to reform Nigeria, for him to restore peace, order, and do what is right for this country. The ruling party has done what they could. For 8 years, you have seen what you have seen. And I believe that it is time to have a new person in power to ensure that this country is united, secured, so that we can move ahead.
But don't forget that the ruling party has its own primaries next week. And it was just before your primary that INEC, moved the deadline for for conducting primaries and the submission of names. Do you think that maybe gives an undue advantage or maybe puts you at a disadvantage? I wonder how you took in the whole shifting of the deadline.
You see, in other countries, the opposition tries to wait for what the ruling party will do. But in this situation, you can see the APC is always waiting for what the PDP will do. They don't even know where their chairman will come from until the PDP decided they should go to North Central, and then they followed and sent to North Central. They decided before that they were going to shift power to southern part of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Then later, there was this that we have not decided, and it is open. And now you see them, they kept changing their timetable in order to wait to see what the opposition is going to do. And right now, they are so confused. They don't even know whether to zone power or to leave it open. They are so indecisive. And you can even see the extension of this INEC timetable is more to their own favor, because they can't even screen their candidates. They just don't know what to do. You need to take a decision. You are in charge of Nigeria. You are a ruling party. You should be the first setter. But it appears that this is not the case. Someone from northern part of Nigeria has been the president for 8 years from a ruling party. So if logically you should send it to the south, the opposition party may not be obliged to do that because they want to win election.
Yeah.
They want to win election. And you have to have the power before you think of rotating it or not rotating it. So that is why the Atiku factor now has been able to play. But now they even don't know what to do.
Well, clearly you're also watching what's going on in the main party. In fact, we've seen headlines. I think Governor Omai is saying that he'll defeat your candidate before 12 noon on election day. So it looks like even the main party, APC, is quite sure of getting this. So you're watching clearly. Do you think that they might also maybe throw this open or just zone it to a certain region?
From what we have seen, the APC is follow. They don't have the confidence to create initiative. They don't have initiative. They want to do, and find a way to outsmart PDP.
Isn't that what the game is about, really?
Well, that's what it is. But the issue is then that there is an uncertainty as to what they want to do. Maybe they will follow the example of the PDP did not zone to the north, but they treat open. And because of all the other consideration we have seen, Atiku Abubakar, His Excellency, has emerged. So if they throw it open and we follow the same trajectory, maybe somebody else may emerge who has some of those factors that we spoke about. It's uncertain, but I think what Shehu is saying is that there ought to be a leader. Right now, the PDP is the leader. So it's leading and APC is following.
Okay, well, I expected that, clearly. It's politics, but I think we have to anchor at this point. The coming days will be quite interesting. But I would like to thank you so much, Mazi Samuel Habuwa, PDP presidential aspirant. And it was good seeing you on the floor and following the whole process. I think hopefully a lot of people are influenced and motivated by that, as well as Senator Shehu Sani, who's a PDP governorship aspirant as well for Kaduna State. Thank you so much for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Well, let's take this quick break, and we'll be back taking a look at the elections. We'll be speaking with, of course, the umpire and civil society, especially regarding the issues that have come up about the timetable of the election. So please stay with us.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is hosting leaders of the 18 registered political parties in Nigeria to update them on preparations for the 2023 general elections, as well as the off-season elections in Ekiti and Osun states. This is the first time INEC is holding a meeting with political parties since the 2022 Electoral Act was signed in February this year.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
The leadership of political parties are well represented at this meeting, and they appeal to INEC to extend the timeline for party primaries by 2 months.
The General Assembly of IPAC, after an exhaustive examination of the INEC timetable and related issues, arrived at an unanimous decision to request for an extension of 2 months to the deadline of the time frame for the conduct of the party primaries and resolution of conflicts arising from the primaries. By implication, the IPAC leadership is appealing to the INEC to extend the deadline for the conduct of party primaries and the resolution of ensuing conflicts from the present INEC given date of 3rd June 2022 to 9th of July 2022.
This request seems to be a no-no for the INEC chairman, who urges all political parties to comply with the timelines of elections and conduct their primaries within the stipulated time.
I hereby reiterate the position of the Commission that there will be no review of the timelines. There are so many interrelated activities that are associated with the timelines which must be carried out.
INEC had in February this year reviewed the timetable for the 2023 general elections and fixed February 25th, 2023 for the presidential and National Assembly elections and March the 11th for governorship and state houses of assembly elections. Political parties were also asked to conduct their primaries between April 4 and June the 3rd.
Well, INEC has since, of course, moved that deadline for the conduct of the primaries and the upload of the, the names and details of the candidates of the political parties for next year's election. But there's been a lot of reaction to that one. First, the People's Democratic Party saying, well, you can't move the goalpost right in the middle of the game. And just recently, we had the Transition Monitoring Group also putting out a statement saying, well, we don't think this is too good. But let's help you understand the implications, at least from the side of the civil society. INEC has given explanation saying, well, we had a window anyway for the upload. So instead of just leaving all that time for upload, we thought we could also allow the political parties conduct their primaries within that same window. So it's not as though we're changing much. It's just using free time and converting it for something else. And to discuss this with us, we have Mr. Alwar Rafsanjani, who is the chairman, Transition Monitoring Group, which is a civil society election observation organization, is also head of CISLAC, Amnesty International Nigeria, and TI. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Mr.
Good morning.
Rafsanjani. Well, your group put out that statement, and for the benefit of those who may have not seen that or who are wondering, what is a furor about? What exactly is the crux of your matter?
We're deeply concerned that the Independent Electoral Commission confidence on Nigerians might be tampered with, because Nigerians are beginning to trust the leadership of INEC, and if they can see this contradictory and deliberate attempt to favor one political party out of 17, might create confidence building problems. And we don't want to go into election with such kind of feeling. That's number one. Number two, when the collective political parties led by IPAC requested INEC to give them time, INEC categorically, clearly told the whole world that they will not grant that, and simply because there were going to be interrelated activities, so there will not be any space. Now, we were just wondering what may have changed, that only one political party, that's the ruling party, demanded for the extension and they were granted. That can send a wrong signal to other political parties and other Nigerians to say that INEC is no more independent and autonomous. So INEC must do everything possible to be fair to all the political parties and must also not be seen as a stooge of the ruling party. If they allow Nigerians to have that perception, then it means that INEC image, respect will have gone down. And also,
it wasn't, just to clarify, that the APC was not heard verbally asking for a shift in date. It was IPAC, the Inter-Party Advisory Council.
Their request was turned down, as you can see from the meeting that they had with the INEC. That's number one. And then it is on the basis of that turned down.
Whose request? IPAC's request?
IPAC requested INEC to extend the timetable.
Indeed.
INEC said no. And it was on the basis of no that other political parties have gone ahead to conduct their primaries. So it is only fair, to stand on that position. And if you are going to have any changes, you must explain to Nigerians, not on the basis of a particular party that has postponed it on, remember, the ruling party postponed it on primaries. And it was in the middle of one other political parties were doing that. So the impression that will be given, it is because the ruling party did not want to do this, and that is why it happens. I'm saying it is perception. I'm not even making a categorical allegation. I'm saying that let them de-escalate that perception so that it will not look as if it is the ruling party that directed them to do that.
Okay,
it's very important in confidence building.
Let us listen to what INEC itself had to say when it decided to postpone or give the political parties more room to conduct their polls.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, meets the leaders of various political parties in the country at the commission's headquarters in Abuja. At least 13 political parties are represented at this meeting, including the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, but conspicuously absent is the People's Democratic Party.
Requested.
The national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Mr. Yaba Gisani, appeals to the INEC chairman to allow political parties to use the 6-day period between 4th and 9th of June to conclude their primaries.
Kindly take a second look at the timetable, which we considered tight in respect of the fact that we are putting this electoral law 2022 to test for the first time, and the fact that anything you are doing for the first time, you may, make some mistakes.
This is not the first time political party leaders will be approaching INEC with a request. INEC had emphatically rejected the previous request to extend the timetable by 37 to 60 days. However, this time the Commission's chairman accepts to give the request a consideration.
The request the last time was for an extension of between 37 and 60 days. On this, the position of the Commission has not changed. It appears that the parties have now presented a modified request for what the chairman calls a little adjustment. We will now discuss further to understand the basis for requesting this little adjustment, and thereafter the Commission will meet and a statement will be issued.
And later in the day, INEC releases a statement announcing a 6-day extension for political parties to conclude their primaries. The statement reads, quote, "The Commission has decided to allow the request of the political parties since the 6-day period does not conflict with the next scheduled activity, which is the submission of the list of nominated candidates," end of quote. It, however, says the request is granted in respect of outstanding primaries only, without prejudice to those already concluded by political parties. The implication of this extension is that the June 3rd deadline will now be extended and perhaps give the parties time to resolve all legal and logistics problems that have arisen in the course of conducting their primary elections. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, Mr. Rafsanjani, I'm sure that if you look at it, INEC really was very circumspect in terms of how it approved this shift of date, shift of the deadline of submission of candidates, in light of the request by IPAC that it consider that. You wouldn't agree?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, these Nigerians have already, had this perception that it was because one of the political parties had decided to shift its own primaries. That is why, and because many Nigerians have this feeling that our electoral body is still not independent. That is why this thing happens, and that's why I say we need to do everything possible as a country to sustain this confidence building that the electoral body is having on Nigerians. Once Nigerians begin to lose confidence on our electoral body, then there will be a challenge. Secondly, which is the most important thing, you see, this attempt of shifting may graduate to another evil thing that some people will be canvassing very soon if you continue to grant this frivolous shifting. Some people, they will now begin to mount the idea of saying that, oh, let's even postpone the election. We don't want any situation like that to happen. That's why INEC took its time, come up with a schedule, timetable schedule, which Nigerians uploaded them for that. But these 6 days that we are now giving is going to be a concern to other political parties whom, because initially they all collectively requested and he turned it down. Now, who sent the request to INEC to grant this thing? Obviously, it is not the collective of other political parties, because if it was, you would have seen that all of them would have been there. But it is completely not fair when other political parties are conducting the exercise based on your own decline of their request to now grant it to maybe 1 or 2 political parties 13. That have not done, 13 political parties that have not done their primaries. I don't think, it is fair. But like I said, the most important thing is that INEC must sustain the public confidence. Secondly, INEC must not also listen to evil people who will say, let's shift the election, because they want to test the water. And that is why we in civil society are concerned that we must not create crisis in our democratic consolidation. INEC had issued timetable. We must respect that. And of course, you need to give room for litigation, possible litigation. So these 6 days that they are talking about, that is pre. It's not pre, like the INEC had earlier on said, that there will be interrelated activities. So that is really contradiction. So all we are saying as civil society is that let's make sure that there's a fairness in the contest, in the political space. We don't want a situation whereby we will go to this election, political parties, even if they genuinely fail, they will now be capitalizing of the fact that maybe the electoral body is not fair or is biased. That is why we want to caution INEC to be careful in taking such kind of decision, especially when it seems to be coming from the ruling party.
Well, that's the reason I'm asking you. Well, the statement I made was that when you look at it objectively, it does appear that INEC was circumspect in terms of the amount of time that it approved, the time frame that it approved. It's still within, nothing really major has been affected in the schedule by the approval it has given for a new submission or deadline for the submission of candidates. That's what I'm asking.
No, the point we are also making is simple. Yes, nothing fundamental has changed, but you have already created psychological tension that some people, whether you like it or not, they will be doubting the credibility of the body, and we don't want that to happen. That's number one. Number two.
Do you think we have a duty to try and change? I mean, all of us, because you've said INEC should try and change that impression. But don't you think we all bear that responsibility to ensure that the electorate retains confidence in the umpire?
The only way we can continue to do that is to ensure that the body, the electoral body, is also doing what is right. Secondly, we also need to make sure that the political parties also behave in a manner that it could help to create that confidence or to sustain that confidence, because their action or inaction can also affect the credibility, of the whole system. So it is important that INEC become more consistent, and be, fair to everyone, every political parties, so that it will not undermine the confidence that we're talking about. We are helping to ensure that Nigerians have belief in our electoral system. Because if we don't have leave in our electoral system, it means that people will not even participate in the electoral process. And you see the consequences of not participating actively by Nigerians. At the end of the day, you surrender your will to people who don't even deserve to be. This whole issue of delegating is a pointer to the fact that many people who are supposed to be at the party level, at local, state, and national level, are not involved. And you only have a finished product. So by the time you come, they mortgage, they do the trading. But if you have responsible, competent, quality people with experience who are not going to be, selling their conscience and their country, they cannot, this kind of delegate, buying that we are talking about, you will not see them. But because Nigerians, they don't bother to go into party politics, contest at the party level, so that you can have some quality, people at the party leadership at all level, ward, and all of those structures in our country. That's why we will not finish, we will not see the end of this delegate mess. If you have competent, qualified, responsible Nigerians occupying, those so-called delegate position, we will not see the kind of trading we are seeing.
And that's a major point you have made, but we have to anchor at this point. We were hoping to have INEC speak on this as well, especially on that point of, the perceived independence of INEC and what people think about it, but clearly not today. But we do hope to have INEC in the coming days. But for now, we'll have to thank you so much, Mr. Awa Rafsanjani, who is the chairman of a transition monitoring group, a civil society election observation organization. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, that's been the show for this morning, everyone. Yes, a lot of focus on the politics of things. Yes, it is very important. And I would like to thank you for being a part of it. It's the start of a new week, and we ask that you make this week count. I'm Kayode Okikyolu.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I'm Ayo Makinde. It's still one Nigeria. Make it count.
We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So.